Well, I'll go ahead and get started. The slides are super important when we get to there. So what is ROPE? ROPE is the Racing Officials Accreditation Program. It's a collaborative effort of industry organizations that are dedicated to ensuring integrity of horse racing, by educating and training racing officials through an accreditation process. We are a 501c6 organization that operates solely on contributions from our member organizations and other organizations that support our mission. So the mission statement of ROPE, I'll read it since you don't have the benefit of the slide. The mission of ROPE is to accredit and provide continuing education to all racing officials, stewards, and judges in the horse racing industry. By doing so, ROPE is enhancing the image and upholding the integrity of horse racing at all levels. Frank is going to talk specifically about kind of the key component of ROPE, and that is the continuing education and accreditation programs. But I will just briefly kind of mention that ROPE itself is all horse racing. So you can see on that slide across the top there, we have flat racing, we have harness racing, we have steeplechase racing. We cover all disciplines and are supported by all of the different organizations. I would be remiss in not putting up this slide that has kind of images of all of our board members and supporters, a great variety of organizations that support what those do. So ROPE board and staff is made up of 17 horse racing organizations, and then we have up to 9 at-large members, which are generally stewards, racing officials, or others that are invested in the industry. Eddie Arroyo is our current chairperson, sitting next to Frank. He's one of our former chair people. Thank you for that. We have Michelle Kobiak from the USTA as the vice chair, Dee Davis, who is retired from the University of Arizona as our secretary and the treasurer. We currently have one part-time office assistant named Libby. For any of you all in the room who happen to also be racing officials, she is fantastic, and she is the one that you'll be communicating with if you need help with your continuing education, updating your data in the database. So just a quick history of ROPE, how we got to where we are today. In the 1940s, the first steward school was held in New York, and that was actually held by the Jockey Club School for Racing Officials. So we've come really full circle to be sitting up here today talking about ROPE and being on the board. In the 1960s, USTA conducted its first training for harness racing officials. In the 80s, there was 2 steward schools, one on the East Coast primarily for thoroughbreds and one on the West Coast primarily for thoroughbreds, and those were coordinated by the universities of Louisville and Arizona, who continue to be involved with ROPE today. In 1991, the 2 programs merged nationally under the Racing Officials Accreditation Program, but it was just a loose association of all of these different organizations and supporters. In 1995, we brought in the United States Trotting Association. In 2005, we actually incorporated into 501c6, and then in 2008, we added accreditation for the National Steeplechase Association's groups. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the National HBPA's role with ROPE. HBPA is one of the founding members of the ROPE Board of Directors, and they are sustaining contributors to ROPE since we were incorporated in 2005. In the last couple of years, thanks to Eric, we have had several HBPAs, the local affiliates, have contributed to ROPE, and I just wanted to say thank you all so much for the support. Without organizations like the state HBPAs that have contributed to ROPE, we would not be able to provide the education and programs that we are able to do. So thank you for that. We are happy to have conversations with you all about having ROPE programs, whether that's a certificate program, continuing education program, or if there's other needs that you have at your local affiliate level that ROPE could help with. Let's have those conversations. We're actually really good at accrediting and educating them. So if there's a role for that within your organization, we're happy to have those conversations. We're always looking for ways that ROPE can continue our mission through education. And that is ultimately fundamentally what we do. I will talk a little bit about why education and accreditation is important. So racetracks and racing commissions that employ accredited officials are represented by qualified professionals. It's really important to the integrity of racing. That's primarily stewards and judges, but it also is other officials. When we get the kind of lower racing officials, paddock judges, and placement judges accredited, that gives continuity at the racetrack. That allows fill-in if a steward is not available. That allows for someone to fill in a role, say a safety steward or a similar position, so that there's consistency in officiating, even if a steward is sick or has to be out for some reason, you can bring in some of the other officials to fill in. Horsemen, bettors, and racing fans are confident that the sport is being overseen by qualified experts. So the road accreditation school, we're going to talk about, it's an intense school. It's a week, you learn a lot, and then there's an exam process that is, again, lots of information and lots of retained information to help you pass those exams. Part of the accreditation process also involves experience. So we're not only educating these officials, we recognize that it's important that they're also getting real world experience, particularly in the racing office, in order to be accredited and to maintain their accreditation. Also fundamentally, it needs the accredited requirements that are in law rules and most statements and regulations. So just a quick snapshot at Rogue through 2025. We've had more than 1,500 individuals from 8 countries that have taken a road course since 1991. There's not a lot of racing official schools and programs in the rest of the world. Some countries have them, but not all. So we do get a lot of participants from, in particular, the Asian countries, South America, and some other countries where they recognize the need and the value of having accredited racing officials. We currently have 316 fully accredited officials in good standing that are working in North America. Just so you can see the numbers there. Level 1 is sort of our high level, so that's the top scores. 2 is in the middle, and then 3 is at this level. So you come in with the minimum number of experience days, you come in at level 3. So in 2025, Rogue held 2 simultaneous accreditation schools for flat racing and harness racing, and that was attended by 59 aspiring racing officials. We approved 8 continuing education events for multiple jurisdictions, and that's both in person and online during 2025, and those were attended by 215 racing officials. We also offered a certificate program in Puerto Rico to 26 officials. For the first time, just the past Sunday, Rogue completed a CE that was held in conjunction with the organization, the Racing Investigator Conference. So we gave our racing officials an extra 4 hours of continuing education, that along with participation of the OI conference, get some continuing education for the year. It worked really well, and we will be talking at the end of this presentation a little bit about how Rogue and OI are going to continue to collaborate going forward. Just a little bit about additional resources. Some of these may be of interest for you all. We have an online directory of racing officials. We do free job posting called Limited Ads. And that would mainly be for racing officials, but we also would be happy to post jobs for HBPA, or if there's any affiliate organizations that you all have a need for a qualified educated racing official. We're happy to post that. We offer a regular newsletter on that website. We have a textbook, it's called the Racing Official Resource Guide, that actually goes platforms and general racing information. We have a safety equipment guidelines pamphlet, and then we have in the past had an international exchange program for stores, and that is something that in 2026 we actually plan to kind of reinvigorate. Obviously with COVID things went a little bit off really with the international travel for several years, so but that's come back up as an important area for our board. And for our organization that's a grower. So we can hold that correct. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kristen. I have a slide that's probably in the slideshow that I want to put up for this occasion. I grew up in racing, and I was reading through the pamphlets you guys have and talking about the HBPA, and it said in there that the horsemen have a habit of taking care of their own. And if someone was sick or down as luck, they passed the hat. Well, when I was 8 years old, I was the recipient of that. There was a little racetrack in New Mexico called the Mesa Park that's no longer there. I was walking past before they had hot walking machines. We had no readings. And I get on a pony horse in the morning, and my dad started handing me horses. And I see some head shaking in the room to understand that. And one morning, the loose horse ran behind us. And I had 2 gray horses. No question, crossed red out on the black with the music out there. And they went different directions. And my horse was spooked, and he started bucking, and lead chain wrapped around my left hand, the half hitch of my left hand. next thing I know, I'm flying through the air, and it came down my left arm, and I set up and the bone was sticking out of my arm. And so it was a pretty serious fracture. It was hospital for a few days. They had to reset it a couple of times. We had no insurance, of course, you know, and but I remember my dad telling me, he said, well, don't worry about stunts. If the gate past the attic draw 2 days in a row, they all the hospital bills. So I feel very confident sitting here this morning trying to all of you. It's HBPA has been an important part of my life. And this picture that's up, I ran across this before I came here. This is Oak Lawn Park, 1956. So I was 2 years old, and I'm not in the picture, but the guy holding the horse was my dad, Melvin. And my mom's the third one from the left, and I was on the other end. And of course, the people with stature in the middle are the owners, obviously. And but I don't know if you can see it up on the end of the in the middle at the bottom there, it's a traffic issues, slow and showery. And looking at the weather forecast, I think we might see some of that right here this weekend. So with that, I'll go back to the slideshow. Okay. And one of the cool story while we're waiting on that is at Samuel Racetrack in New Mexico, when I was 12, my dad was running quite a few races, he was having a pretty good meet, and he got called to the steward's office one morning, and went up there and they said that he had a body test, and so he had no problem, we're going to do something. And so what do you mean? He said, well, you're going to be suspended for a year. And he had 22 head of horses there, and it was immediate. He had 24 hours. He didn't have a hearing. He was just told he was going to leave because he had a body test. He couldn't tell him what was in it. So, I mean, of course, it disrupted our lives. And you couldn't switch horses over to somebody else. You just had to leave. Other trainers got the horses, but he was done. You know, I always thought that was pretty unfair. And as things progress along in our business, you know, we've overcome some of those things. We've established the rights of horsemen, and we have hearings, and they have an opportunity. And so it's always important to me to be a part of that. When I became a racing official at a very young age, I had an opportunity to be a steward when I was 24 years old, and which was way too young, but I saw an opportunity there to maybe help right some of those wrongs. And so I've been involved with this ever since. Kind of ties together this slide, this the community and the dynamic of the vote, and all the states that are involved, and I appreciate that a lot. The program benefits the racetracks and racing commissions and employee officials represented by quality professionals, and that's what we want. We want someone that can be a professional within that stand. It's important for the horsemen, the cutters, the racing fans, and we have requirements, as Kirsten mentioned earlier. I think you're already. Here we go. As you can see there, the accreditation equals education, examinations, and experience. So we have these 60-hour full accreditation schools, and Kirsten touched on that. It was intensive. Well, let me tell you, it is very intensive. There were long days, usually 8 days. I think we've got to narrow it down to. And they vary between East and the West Coast. So we can kind of cover everybody. In the beginning, when we first started this in 1991, we had quite a few classes, and we grandfathered some of the stewards that had been around for a while into it, but they still had to take the exams. And I was one of those people, and I sat through classes for a couple of days, and I took the exams. And I'm telling you, I was sweating bullets. I remember the film exam. We had 10 races on the film exam, and you had so much time to get through it all and make your decisions. And there was one race that they threw in there that was nothing happened. It was a clean race, and you had to figure that out, right? And so, so you look at this thing, there's got to be something I'm missing, and that was the clean race. But at the end of that film exam, I was covered in sweat. It was like a bad day at the races, right? Everything went wrong. Because in those films it did. So you have to complete the 5 exams. It's the general, medication, legal, oral, and film. And we have 3 levels of stewards based on experience, you know, how much they're working and how much they have work. And then we also have continuing education. And when we started this, we kind of based this on other professions, such as being an attorney. Attorneys have to have so much CE in order to keep their credentials up to date. And so that's what we do here. We have 16 hours of continuing education every 2 years, so they can stay in good standing. The courses are offered across the country. We're starting to go a little bit with some virtual stuff. We had to during COVID. And so we've kind of been able to weave that in now. They cover industry initiative updates, race review library, hot topics, and critical issues, or points of emphasis, I guess, and what else. So the points of emphasis that was mentioned began in 2008, and that's kind of based on, you look at other professional sports, and the NFL, for example, has points of emphasis every year that their referees are told, hey, this year we're really looking at this. We need to do this this particular thing we're going to focus on. I'm sure this last season it had to do with probably the pickoff. And which hopefully if I get an opinion on that, I should do. And it's not a good one, but so we have every 2 years we have a different points of interest. And they're distributed to the racing industry, the stewards, and the commission of executive directors. Some of the previous ones, previous years, racehorse aftercare awareness, use and regulation of the whip. And that's what we've been talking about for a long time. Understanding microchips and digital certificates, human drug usage, resources for biosecurity, immigration, licensing, and conducting mock hearings. We also started something in 2014 called Pete Peterson Award, and we wanted to do something that would recognize our stewards, the ones that really stand out and do a good job. I'm sure many of you know some of the names, so I'm going to show you this in a minute. But it's named in honor of a steward named Pete Peterson. He worked in California for 50 years and worked at almost every track on the West Coast, probably did work at every track on the West Coast. He received an Eclipse Award, the High Award. They just had an amazing reputation, and so our award is named after him. And I'm not going to go down through and read all those to you, but as you look at the names here, I'm sure you recognize many of them, and they're all great stewards or were great stewards in some cases, and some are no longer with us, but it's quite a list of stewards.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, This is the information you might need. If you have any questions about this, we have Lydia's, as Kristen mentioned earlier, there's your email address and Kristen's, and if you have any questions there. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the person over right.
Thanks, Frank. Don and I serve on the board of directors of the Organization of Racing Investigators. URI is a 501c6 not-for-profit organization that was founded in 1996 to provide training and education to horse racing investigators across the United States. And being that Don is a founding member of that organization, I think you can give a little bit of history there.
So in '96, I was working at Portland Meadows, and they had a new director of enforcement out there for the racing commission who didn't really know anything about racing. I had been in the industry for about 15 years at that point in time, working with the TRPD. And so he put together this conference that had 22 of us there. I was serving as a TRPD agent for Portland Meadows at the time. And we had a 2-day roundtable discussion covering certain investigations and sharing information that was going on primarily in hot topics around the country. And toward the end of that meeting, basically, much like the founding of this organization, we sat around and kicked the can around a little bit and decided that it would be worthwhile for the industry for us to continue these types of meetings. So the gentleman from Arizona, Department of Racing back in the day, by the name of Steve Lump, said, "I'll host it next year." So we went from 22 and did a little advertising with the RCI, and we went from 22 investigators from different parts of the country up to 85. So it showed us at that point in time that this was a viable tool for a lot of folks. We had a lot of new people who were employed by racing commissions and racetracks that came, and we put on a 2-day agenda that was pretty impactful. We continued on, and it was around 2000 or so. Some of the guys who were involved in participating said, "Hey, we need to formalize this organization." And again, long story short, we put together a program for 501c6 corporation incorporated in New York in 2001, and we continued on. So this year, very proud to say we had our 30th annual conference. We covered a lot of information that is relevant to the industry. We also had representatives from not only the U.S., but Canada, Puerto Rico, England, South Africa, France, Hong Kong, Japan, South Korea attend our conference this year. That's pretty impressive. I think we're about the only organization that conducts annual training conferences for investigators. And our goal with this really is to educate our folks to trends in the industry, tools that are being used out there for testing, horse identification, and different methodologies for conducting investigations and addressing some of the key issues that are affecting the industry. This year, we also had a very prominent couple of conversations about aftercare. And, we all talk about our social license to operate, and we have a role in that as well to educate our people and let them know the tools that are out there for the industry and to help the industry and help horsemen. And so it was very important for us to do that. One of the things that one of our members came up with is we had a bottle of Woodford Reserve signed by a junior Alvarado, and we conducted a charity fundraiser for aftercare both in the Tampa area and nationally, and we raised $1,500 for the bottle, Then we had, another individual who's attending our conference, double that by buying the bottle back and then redonating it back to, TAA for their re-auction. So, that's something we did internally for the industry, just amongst our members. And we were pretty proud that we were, able to raise that money to go into aftercare.
So the ORI then, is primarily, like I said, training, education, and networking for the investigators. And years back, through the connections that the state regulators and investigators had formed, they started talking to each other and said, we kind of need some help for, one of our big races. And we ended up forming back then, we were called the big event teams. So over the years, a lot of the investigators would get together and travel to a jurisdiction and help conduct proactive enforcement operations at the racetracks. Through that, over the years, the demand had just gotten so big that in last year in 2025, we just had a lot of jurisdictions and organizations coming to us, asking for our help. So we ended up formalizing that last year and formed a subsidiary corporation of the ORI called ORI Integrity Services, which is utilized to, one, provide a service to the industry that the demand was there, and two, to provide funding for the organization of racing investigators to continue our mission of education and training for the investigators. So we're investing all that money that, it's a very small amount of money that the ORI makes off of doing the integrity teams, but it's reinvested right back in the industry. It's not going anywhere else. So what the integrity services offers is, a proactive enforcement operations. But through those proactive enforcement operations, we're also helping with professional development on site at the racetracks. We serve as an educational resource for the horsemen when we're there on site working at those events. And obviously it serves as a deterrent when we're there at the racetracks. We've formed a lot of good relationships with organizations, in Pennsylvania. I can speak there as between the horsemen's organization, the racetracks and the commission, we all look at racing integrity the same way, and we all kind of put money towards doing those operations in Pennsylvania. And those missions of the integrity teams when we're out doing these, a lot of people think that we're out there. We're not out there to say, aha, we got it. We're out there to serve as a guide. We want to say, hey, here's the line. We want to help you not cross that line. We want to be a resource for you. We want you to come with the horsemen to come to us and ask us questions. And we've formed a lot of those relationships. One of the bigger teams in the country is the Breeders' Equine Security Team, which John is the supervisor of that team. And you have horsemen that they trust to come to us to ask questions. When's the cutoff time for this? When's the cutoff time for that? And the biggest mission of those teams are, obviously we want to protect the equine athletes and the horses. We want to protect the public, and most of all, we want to maintain a level playing field and protect the horsemen as well. So that's one of the things that we were able to do with the ORI. And then, Kristen and I started talking, and amongst ourselves, we've gone and the rest of us, we said, we really should probably have an actual investigator certification course. So that's something that we are working right now with Kristen to put together an actual certification course for the investigators with growth, that we can provide a better product to the industry.
If I can just double back on that. There was a certification class that was conducted several years ago through RCI and the University of Louisville, which laid a great groundwork for this further discussion. with road to have accreditation. And moving forward, we're developing a itinerary, if you will, a platform, subject matter, and putting things together where we can continue that groundwork that RCI and Mark started several years ago.
Yeah, and I think, as many of you all in this room probably understand, boards are run by volunteers, and most of the time, volunteers are passionate or engaged in local topics. Rope, ORI, no different. And what we found in particular is that we can probably move forward even more with collaboration. And so, as Jason mentioned, we've had conversations about how can Rope and ORI work together to certify or credit or whatever the term ends up being investigators. And I don't think it ends there. There's a lot of individuals involved in horse racing that either are in need of continuing education or certification of some kind. And so I think this is hopefully just the first step in taking what is a need in the industry and really trying to solidify that through collaboration, we can make these programs even better. So I think that's it that we have officially. Happy to answer any questions or feedback.
I have one real quick, other question. I just throw this out there, maybe until this is what I did yesterday during the panel on AI. I got to think about a few things, but I ran into a friend of mine that's in the audience today that I was a steward with years ago, and we were talking about the AI, and he was telling me, well, it's been around a long time, and it's just progressed a lot, and it's progressing a lot faster now. And so I said, yeah, it's too bad we didn't have that when we were stewards. And so, well, why not? Might be a little bit better. And so I noticed today that Major League Baseball this next season is going to be using AI assistant for calling balls and strikes. Now, since we're always copying these other professional sports, and how can that be applied to the stewards game? And how can we use that as a tool? Because if you think about it, AI is nothing but a tool. And it's just like when we didn't have photo finish, the stewards or placement judges had to make those decisions just by the naked eye. And then along came the motion picture industry, and they came up with a photo finish system that we still use today. And the same with our video control. It's the tools that the stewards can use. So maybe that's the next step. Is some AI assisted this qualification tool. So just something that keeps me awake at night, and thought I would throw that out to you.
Thanks, Brian. Any questions? Thank you, guys. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.